to the nation.
Let's all sit down
and have a conversation.
You
understanding.
Listen to you, you listen to me.
We can
work things out in harmony.
I respect.
Respect each other's feelings. Respect who you are. Respect each other's culture, and we all go far.
E, education.
A point of elevation.
It keeps on going.
Even after graduation. We out of here.
Yeah.
Crown Heights, a Brooklyn community where tensions have been smoldering for nearly 3 decades between African Americans and members of the Lubavitcher sect of Hasidic Judaism. In August of 1991, these tensions erupted into 4 days of rioting. The last car in the motorcade following a Lubavitcher leader went out of control, striking and killing 7-year-old Gavin Cato, an African American. During the unrest that followed, a second innocent life was lost, that of Jewish scholar Yankel Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum died from a fatal stab wound after he was surrounded by a crowd of angry African-American youths. The Crown Heights tragedy weighed heavy on race relations, so much in fact that some community members decided to do something about it. The unrest brought together a group of multiracial, multi-religious leaders determined to end the violence, resolve problems, and develop long-term strategies in addressing issues on all sides. As a result, dedicated community representatives, clergy, educators, and public officials have been working to build bridges of understanding and cooperation. In a few minutes, we'll hear from some of them. Brooklyn Community Board Districts 8 and 9 make up Crown Heights. Its history and diverse cultures are reflected in single-family brownstones, middle-class apartment buildings, pockets of poverty, and shopping thoroughfares, offering the gamut from kosher to Creole. In fact, the diversity of Crown Heights, which really is its charm, largely accounts for some of its tension.
The relationship between African American, Caribbean American, and Hasidic Jews in the Crown Heights area prior to the August 1991 incident must be responded to on 2 levels. One is that there was a great deal of communication and interaction at a house-to-house on a local level. But in terms of the entire community, there was very little interaction, level of suspicion, concern with habits and cultures, and lack of understanding of those cultures. There was a perception on the part of the black community that the Hasidic community was receiving preferential treatment in terms of police service and other social services that were rendered through the public facilities.
If there was one fault, I think, in the community, it was a lack of communication. You know, I didn't look upon it as a cardinal sin, quote unquote, but I think that to me, that was the real missing ingredient. So if you don't communicate, then you don't have the understanding.
We use this quote a lot. We talk about like 2 ships passing in the night. You might have heard maybe lads say it. So they're there, we're here, but yet still we don't cross their threshold, nor do they cross our threshold, so we don't really know. There's not a marriage, you know, it's like a family or living in the same house, but the upstairs doesn't see the downstairs.
Well, I was raised, as I said, not to be racial, so I generally did not listen to things like this. You know, sort of like, okay, fine, that's what you say, maybe an individual person. But then after what happened in '91, I guess I did start believing things, and that's why I really wanted to get involved. Because I couldn't walk down the same side of the street as a couple black people. I'd get really nervous, and I'd want to cross the street or walk faster or something because I just didn't feel easy about it.
If we are able to communicate throughout incidents like what took place, then we're able to better be prepared to talk with each other and come up with logical and meaningful solutions to these particular concerns. But if we're not even talking to each other, we're just sort of like seeing each other but not seeing us, then we have no common grounds to meet on and discuss any kinds of solution.
Project Cure began initially, we had no name, we had no agenda. We were, I was brought together through the mayor's office and through Rabbi Hecht's office here in Crown Heights to meet Richard Green and, excuse me, just for the 2 of us to get together to see what we could do in terms of bringing some of our youth together for a dialogue. Both the mayor's office and Rabbi Hecht's office felt that that our youth needed to meet and to speak about these issues face to face.
In the first meeting I went to, I was debating should I bring a weapon with me, you know, should I bring a knife, punching stick, mace, you know, because this is things I was carrying at the time because I was nervous.
The first meeting I think was very significant, very indicative about the whole situation. Just looking at the room, physically how it was, we all sat in a big circle. And one half of the circle were all the African-American young men. And on the other half of the circle were all the Hasidic young men. And I was in the middle on one side, Richard was in the middle on the other side. And, and Paul Chandler was there. He was asked by the mayor's office to participate and bring some of his guys.
We sat down, Laz did his rap, you know, and I sat there, you know, you know, yeah, nice, you know, everybody's clapping, you know, everybody was into it. And that was nice, you know, so I started relaxing then. And then yeah, there was all this media over there interviewing different people, you know, about everybody about different things. And then, you know, we circled up, we said 23rd Psalm, you know, Reverend Chen or, you know, went over there, he's a Baptist minister, you know, they introduced him as that. And I'm like, oh no, Baptist minister, I'm Jewish. I didn't come in for religious stuff. But he said 23rd Psalm, which is pretty neutral. And it was pretty nice.
Then they just started firing away questions at each other. What's with the beanie on your head? What's with the beard? Why you guys all wear black? What's with the dreadlocks? Why you guys hang out on the street corners? How come you all play ball? How come you all listen to rap? And how come you all listen to reggae? How come you sit on your rear ends and learn the whole day? How come you don't hang out with girls? Just one after the other. My first reaction, just sitting there listening to the questions, and it was, again, just everybody firing from the hip. My first reaction was, I was just floored by the whole thing, because here you had people living in the same community with each other, some 19, 20, some 23 years, and they knew nothing about each other. You know, I always took it for granted that when I walk down the street, people know why I wear a beard. People know why I have a beanie on my head. They know about these white strings. And the truth of the matter is that they don't. And you know, I thought I knew about African-American culture and Caribbean-American culture, and I also realized that my knowledge was way down there. So, you know, as I'm sitting there listening, I remember speaking afterwards to Richard, I said, you know, this is so significant because this is really the root of the problem. There's been no communication.
It was very good, and after that I was hooked.
Oh, I feel culture is going to be the most important key because it gets away from politics, economics I mentioned before, religion. We have to remove ourselves. You see, because you're dealing with two very conservative communities. The African community is a very conservative community. The Jewish community, the Hasidic community is very conservative, meaning in the sense that it's a very close connection with the family, it's a very close connection with religion, a very close connection with community. And we have so much more in common than we do in difference.
The Crown Heights Coalition was established right after the incident in August 1991 by the borough president, Howard Golden. He called together a few days after the incident several leaders and those who lived and worked in the Crown Heights area. So what happened was we came together to discuss the issues and discuss how we could deal with the incident that had occurred. After several meetings, decided to make this coalition a permanent entity to examine the issues that gave birth to the incident and gave rise to the conflict that had existed over several decades. So that we began our work by looking at those factors that seemed to be those most raised by both communities as to what those factors which cause conflict.
You want to raise your children. We all want a traffic light on a corner, or we want more police protection, or we want the sanitation picking the garbage up, or we want the sewers unclogged so there's no floods. These are common things. You don't have to be African or Hasidic to want these things. You just want to be a decent, clear, and conscious-minded human being.
What we found as a result of the work that we did through the Crown Heights Coalition, that neither one of the communities were being well served. So that indeed, as we looked and examined the factors such as health care, housing, police protection, police community relations and employment opportunities, there were limited resources being deployed in the Crown Heights area. So, in fact, neither one of the communities were being well served.
The purpose and the goal of the Youth Collective is the ability for us as a community to take charge and make the kinds of changes in our community that's going to be permanent and become institutionalized. And that's done beyond the day-to-day activities in the collective. It's done in the sense that we give the young people an opportunity to just keep trying. We teach them values and self-esteem. We teach them a certain level of academics and skills. We teach them how to be good citizens and good people to control their own lives. And this is pretty much what the collective does. Now, beyond that, the need for it goes without reason. If you read the stats on a day-to-day basis of things happening around inner city of Americas, Crown Heights is no exception. These young people are more in need now than ever before. They want to be able to go forth and do the things to make them the real people that they could be. So that's our job out here. We ask the clergy and the other people in our communities to take their part and play their role. How are they bringing young people into the churches? You see, my idea in Crown Heights, this is how I was able to, and my work that I did to help to bring this thing to a conclusion. I went after the believers that I already knew. They were the first people I went out on those streets and approached. Those people I knew was the beginning. The ones that I didn't know, the ones that I did know knew them. Many times they were ready to roll on me. So, oh no, wait a minute, that's Mr. Green. That's who gives us a summer job. That's who helps us out and get us to gym. That's who works in my school. Those young people were able to identify me because I was out there with them before August 19th. Gavin Cato's first cousin. They were young people that worked in the center here with me. So they knew me. So that in itself, ministers have to get out there. Every church should be a quasi-community center, not just for the congregation, for the community. Everybody in this, you imagine Brooklyn is called a borough of churches. We should be the borough of solutions. Go in any of the churches in Bedford-Stuyvesant, you don't have gyms in those churches. You have big banquet halls. My young people don't go to banquets. They'll go in a gym, they'll go dance, they'll go listen to music, they'll go maybe in the library and read a book. Church has got to become more responsible.
The thing that all clergy could do, I would advise, if they would allow me as being one of the younger clergies, would be to pray first. And after you pray, then you begin to seek the wisdom of the scriptures, which teaches us that, one, that the purpose in us being here is to love thy neighbor. And if we follow those scriptures, we follow the laws of the Torah as well as the Bible, I think we would know what to do. In terms of cure, we're doing, I don't say we're doing a Band-Aid thing. I think we're dealing more with the soul, or the beat per se, in terms of the community, because we're dealing with the younger people from another perspective. You know, we're getting them where they are, but we want to move them to a greater point of awareness of who they are and who others in our community are.
CURE is made up of both blacks and Jews from the community. We have no official membership, but Richard, Paul, and I, we were discussing this about a month ago or so, to kind of see where we have come in so short a time. And we've had a lot of skeptics. A lot of people said that we'd have a few sessions and the media would come down and say, isn't that great? You know, they're talking to each other now. And so a Band-Aid has now been put on Crown Heights, get a couple good stories out of it, and everybody just go home and kind of leave it where it was. But see, what has happened is that it has grown to way above and beyond our own little personal efforts. In fact, I mean, you look at last week, our Increase the Peace Project Cure basketball team, which is made up of both Hasidim and African Americans from the community. We played ball at halftime during the Knicks game. You know, the Knicks dedicated an evening to racial harmony. That was a real thrill for everybody. You know, not just to be on that court, and not just to be playing on the court, and not even to be acknowledged by the fans, but to have 20,000 fans cheering them on was real exciting, and was a real affirmation, I think, of this whole process. I know I was thrilled to hear it. You know, when here you'd have, and we didn't hire any ringers and put fake beards on them. These are the guys who live here, right in the community. A rabbi called me up beforehand, and he said he was worried that I was going to get the Yeshiva University basketball team, you know, who are basically white guys with no beards and wear these teeny little beanies, and sometimes when they play don't even wear yarmulkes for some of the guys. And he said, is it really going to seem like it's Crown Heights? I said, don't worry, man. I said, these guys got the beards, and two of the guys got these big pot bellies. I said, you'll be able to tell the difference. Don't worry, no problem. And, you know, so we go with the truth, and we keep the element of truth with us. And the fans were so into it. So you'd have this, you know, this guy with this chassid with a big pot belly underneath the boards. He's a great ball player. Grabs the rebound, dishes it off to, you know, to one of the African American ball players, and so, you know, that's how we play. We mix up the teams, and surprisingly, you know, breaks a lot of people's stereotypes. We do have some Hasidic men who can jump, you know, believe it or not.
The Jewish Community Council is a grassroots organization which its sole aim is to improve the quality of life here in central Brooklyn. Over 60% of our clientele are black, and we serve them equally and with the same respect and the same zeal on the part of our staff as anyone else who walks through our door. We're proud of our accomplishments. For if we would use government employees to do the work that we're doing, you'd have to have a staff at least 5 times as large, and you would get less of a production than what our small staff, dedicated staff, who work sometimes many more hours than is specified in their timesheets, okay, so as to resolve the problems of individuals. You mustn't forget, this is, for the most part, regardless of who it is, if it's black or Jewish, there's many, many new immigrants living in this neighborhood. If they're from the islands, if they're from Afghanistan or Iran or Soviet Russia or from Israel or from wherever, or England or France, wherever they come from, there's a lot of new immigrants here that either come from areas which are leery of government, they're afraid of government, or they come from areas that they have no understanding of what government here in the United States has to offer as far as social services. And we make it available to them. We are very proud of our accomplishments in the sense that we have helped immigrants get their green cards. We've helped them with Social Security, with SSI, with food stamps, with welfare, with Section 8. These are all things that are vital in such a area which is designated as a poverty area for the individuals who, without our help, would not have been able to get them.
So we are very pleased that the mayor has responded in a very appropriate fashion and provided additional services to the Crown Heights area. Some of those are in terms of response to our recommendations. One, the recreation center in St. John's Place will be open in February. 2, that the police strength will be up to 100% in the 71st Precinct by February. That 3, that the ministers as an advisory group would be involved in helping to orientate the new recruits who are coming into the 71st Precinct. That the police, community policing program will be accelerated in the Crown Heights area. That in response to the notion of our concern as it related to the healthcare issues, there will be 3 HMOs that will be situated or located in Crown Heights, and they're expected to be open in 1994. We have established safe street quarters for our young people who are going to and fro from the high schools and the elementary schools. And that was a major concern of ours as we examine the issues from the young people's perspective.
There should be an active effort on the part of government, and I'm using government in a broad sense, if it's federal, state, or city, to enable us with programs and initiatives. And since we are a really truly integrated neighborhood, which cannot be said for many neighborhoods in the city of New York or anywhere else in the country, we should be used as a pilot for other neighborhoods and try to resolve the problems and take the lessons of resolving these problems elsewhere in the country. And heaven knows we're here to for keeps. All of us are here for keeps. No one's going anyplace. Okay? And we want it to work because that is what America is all about.
In any community where you have two groups living close by each other, especially in the urban areas where you have people so close by each other, Chicago may come up with the same incidents at some point in time in the future, and we can give them the model. Right, here's your laboratory. Just like when the cops deployed in Washington Heights. They came and took textbook for textbook how to deploy in Washington Heights, how to deploy it in Crown Heights. Who did they come and get? They got me to come to Washington Heights and sit down and show them how to do certain things in terms of ongoing programs to ensure that the people feel happy. See, when the people are upset, you got to make the people feel like now you're back in control again. This is your community. So we went ahead and the first thing we did, we found an old abandoned park in Washington Heights, and we said, okay, let that park be the people's park. The crack dealers ran it before, and now let's take it back. And we went there and broke the locks off, and we took the park back, and now they just tried a big reopening for the park. They refurbished it and made it beautiful. Now the whole community has something that's theirs, and it's the same thing we're doing here in Crown Heights, is establishing some things that could say is permanently yours.
You get this like feeling, a special feeling that, you know, this is like the way things should be.
It's going to last. It's going to go on. And I tell my critics, I'm not trying to be Hasidim. I'm not, you know, if anything, I'm gaining more of who I am and my culture.
I've seen so much progress made on people, just on a people-to-people basis. Doesn't show up in the box scores, it doesn't come on the news. People to people, not just me and Laz and other people doing that work. You go to meetings, you'll have people yelling, then you'll see them come out the meeting and they'll be standing in their own little circles talking. You'll have people coming on the streets to begin something, and before you know it, they're talking. People in our community are asking people in the Hasidic community questions, and vice versa. Then they're realizing that everybody in the Crown Heights community, in the African community, wants to do the same things, basically.
I would hate to live in a world where everybody believes the same thing, does the same thing, wears the same clothes, looks alike. I would want no part of that. Take me out of it, you know? That's one of the reasons why I live in Crown Heights, in fact. When we moved from Buffalo to Crown Heights, we looked at a lot of different communities to live in. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, what everybody said, that Crown Heights is that sort of urban ghetto, the hell it is. You go into Borough Park, that's more of a ghettoized lifestyle than what's going on in Crown Heights. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, people living together with the same culture and the same desires, whatever. I have no problems with that. But give credit where credit is due. Crown Heights is one of the few integrated communities in the world.